Tēnā koutou katoa, kia ora and welcome to another Manawanui live stream. My name is Simon and today we are joined again by Ben O'Meara from Whaikaha. Ben is the Deputy Chief Executive for, make sure I get this right, Policy, Strategy and Leadership, or Partnership, sorry. And we are here to talk about the officially launched New Zealand Disability Strategy for 2026 through to 2030. Ben was on a few months ago because they published the draft for community consultation. We had a wonderful conversation around what was in and what may be needing to be added into it. And it seems like there was a huge amount of community consultation and feedback and some changes that are quite obvious in the final version that was released. So we've brought Ben back on to talk about the whole process, what's happened in the last few months, what people can expect to see in the disability strategy document, and also how it actually applies in the real world and going forward for the disability community. So we're really excited to have him on. So good afternoon, Ben. If you mind, just please introduce yourself to those who may have missed the last stream. Simon speaking. Sorry, I've just noticed, and they've just comments have come through that your audio wasn't coming through. I can't believe I missed that. So sorry. I would love for you just to say that again for me quickly. Sorry, Ben. So go ahead, just from the beginning. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sure. It says I'm unmuted at this end, so hopefully.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
sorry, it was my fault. There was a
All right.
secondary system that handles the video and audio, and I just didn't realize that I had the wrong input for your audio coming through. So yeah.
All right.
So over to
So
you, please. Take two.
kia ora koutou, Ben speaking. Great to be here again, Simon. Just confirming that I'm a Deputy Chief Executive at Whaikaha. Have been here for almost 3 years. It will be 3 years in March of next year. And have had the privilege this year of leading the refreshing of the disability strategy with my team here in the ministry, and on behalf of what we know are around 850,000 New Zealanders with a disability based on the 2023 disability survey. So a lot of people who hopefully can benefit from and be served by this strategy.
Simon speaking. Thanks, Ben. So let's talk about what happened since you joined us on the live stream. There was a period available for public consultation and feedback. Can you just tell us, what was the quantum of feedback you got? What were some of the key themes that people identified during that feedback period?
Yep, sure. Ben speaking. So just a quick recap. So the strategy itself has a vision, a set of principles, and that vision and principles are designed to guide all work for and with disabled people. So across government, and also as a guide for others working to improve the lives of disabled people, so including local government and businesses and others. And then it has 5 outcome areas of education, employment, health, housing, and justice. So we engaged with around about 900 people through the public engagement process. That was through a mix of kanohi ki tu kanohi, or face-to-face, and also online engagements. And we received about 500 pieces of feedback. So we had an online survey tool that I think I talked about last time, which had alternate formats built into it. We also accepted submissions via video in NZSL um, and in Word, and we received a lot of notes and feedback from people holding meetings themselves and providing input to the disability strategy. So we had strong support overall for the vision of the strategy. Around about 70% of people supported it. People weren't so confident, though, that the vision would result in change. So they were concerned that the vision itself was good, but our progress has not been as fast as would really be desirable in recent years. And so over a 5-year period, people didn't have a huge degree of confidence that we could get there. So that's an important challenge for us to take forward. People felt that enabling good lives and the vision and principles of enabling good lives wasn't explicitly enough recognized in the strategy. And also people felt that Te Tiriti o Waitangi and the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities aren't really principles. They're kind of more like foundational documents that include rights for tangata whaikaha Māori in the case of Te Tiriti, and all disabled people in the case of the United Nations Convention. And so it's important that they are recognised in that way. People also identified a whole range of changes to the individual priority area actually missing from various outcome areas. And I wonder whether, Simon, it might be helpful for me to go on to cover some of the changes that we were able to incorporate as a result in the final strategy, and then maybe some of the things that we have still got further work to do as we implement. Shall I go there next?
Simon speaking. Yeah, Ben, I think that's the logical segue is to move on from what was mentioned and talk about how that was addressed in the final version. So yes, please be my guest.
So Ben speaking again. So in the vision itself, which talks about New Zealand being an equitable and accessible place, we got feedback that the word participate was maybe not the best word, and that contribute would be a better word. So we changed that word, and we got feedback that the end of the vision, which sort of talked about disabled people leading, may not be relevant for everybody. So we changed the words to choose the lives they want to lead, so that disabled people have the agency to make choices around whether they take on leadership responsibilities or just contribute in whatever way makes sense for them. In terms of the principles, we have created 3 foundations for the strategy. And so they are the Enabling Good Lives principles, the United Nations Convention, and other relevant human rights commitments, and Te Tiriti o Waitangi, the Treaty of Waitangi. So we've done that to separate out those elements and make them foundational rather than being a part of the principles. In the priority areas, there are a range of specific wording changes, which are probably not really worth going through here. But the things that I particularly draw attention to are an additional action in the housing outcome area, which is about a review of social housing to better reflect the needs of disabled people. And in the education area, where we got a lot of feedback, there is an additional success factor around transitions in education. Transitions was a really big theme in the feedback that we had in the education area, because it is a really critical time, not only for disabled young people, but for all young people really, as they transition, particularly from school into post-school outcomes. And also in the education area, a clarification around the responsibilities of school boards in Action 6, to ensure that they are also accountable for outcomes in their schools. And so those are probably the main changes. There were lots of areas where people gave us specific ideas that we can build in as we go into the implementation phase of the strategy. And in particular, these are things like ideas on accessibility, and the ministry is setting up, or has set up, an accessibility work program, and we have a new accessibility advisory group that meets for the first time this Friday. And so accessibility was a major theme in the feedback that came through on the strategy, particularly around things like transport and enabling disabled people to be out and about. And we also have had other feedback that will be built into our work in responding to the Royal Commission into Abuse and Care. So about the importance of disabled people being safe, about the roles of family and whānau in the lives of disabled people, and supporting them to achieve what they're looking to achieve. So we have incorporated as much as we can. We've also got a list of issues that we will continue to progress through the implementation of the strategy and through other work that Whaikaha is doing.
Simon speaking. Thanks, Ben. I just think now would be a great opportunity to go back to some questions that we got when we posted on social media about this strategy. This one here from Tanya. She feels like the retirement gap was not addressed at all, despite the Retirement Commission being aware that disabled people are the most disadvantaged when it comes to retirement, with no employer contributions to their KiwiSaver, and no government top-ups like the 3% on paternity leave get. So I just wonder, is there reasonable coverage that's in the strategy that may not be specific to addressing the retirement gap, but is there a part of the strategy that does work to address some of those issues that present itself for disabled people at that age?
So I guess the strategy itself, it doesn't divide the way that it addresses issues into particular groups. So it doesn't look at impairment groups, and it doesn't look at particular age groups. But as we implement the actions, we will have to think about those issues. And I'm really conscious, for example, there's a very useful report that was done by the Helen Clark Foundation recently on New Zealand's ageing population. And we've had a look at that report because it has some particular comments around the accessibility of housing and the growing need for accessible housing that align quite closely in some areas with the discussions that we had in the housing working group as a part of the strategy. So I think we we are really aware of the aging population, and the Helen Clark Foundation report really highlighted that as well. If you look at some of the stats in there, the numbers of people who, for example, are going to be aged over 65 and then over 85 is going to really hugely increase in the next 30 years. And one of the things in the housing working group that came up was that retirement villages, as they're constructed, are increasingly incorporating design features that provide for accessibility from new as a part of their builds of retirement villages. And so part of our challenge is how do we get that happening for younger age groups so that people, we have a greater supply of housing, not only for those people who can afford to buy into a retirement village, but across the rest of the sector. So I don't know whether that entirely answers the question, but it does give a sense that at least we're aware of the issue, even if the strategy doesn't have a lot of specific actions around it. Yeah.
Simon speaking. Thanks, Ben. I would like to go back to one of your first points that you talked about, the strategy having visions and principles, and that being the foundation for not just government agencies, but any organization, community group, business, school that has any interaction with disabled people or supports disabled people in any way. What I'm really trying to get an answer or insight into is how can people use the information and the evidence in those sort of parts of the strategy to create meaningful change for them within their own communities? Is there a sort of best practice for introducing this sort of stuff into those groups?
I think what we would say, and there's some material in the strategy, but there's probably way more if people jump onto our website. But we really need to use the stats and the data, as a basis for action. And if we think about having 850,000 people with a disability in New Zealand, and we think about that being around about one in six, 17% of us, then we kind of get that sense that it's a pretty big group of people, and it on top of that, there are instances where other aspects of people's lives really benefit from things like accessibility. And most people who've ever had a buggy to manage or other temporary disability circumstances as a result of an accident will know that what accessibility provides for disabled people, it provides for a much wider group of people. So I think that's the conversation we have to have. We've also been doing some work on things like the benefits of disabled people being in employment, so the gains that can come from that. And Whaikaha has, we have operating at the moment a cross-government internship, which is the first instance of its type for disabled people for a long time, and that's got 13 interns across 10 agencies at the moment doing summer internships. And so again, it's kind of like, what if you look at the sort of stuff that people are experimenting with, and we are not the only agency, or Whaikaha is not the only example of this. There are instances of local governments continuing to work on things like the accessibility of buses and trains and all of those sorts of things. And we try and build off these initiatives, knowing the stats, knowing that we've got 851,000 disabled people, knowing we've got an aging population, and knowing that what disabled people are looking for is the same equity and opportunity for participation and to contribute as everybody else has. And I think that's kind of the conversation. And I always say to people, if we can just build the conversations and awareness and stuff around this so that it's part of our everyday um, uh, approach to things. If disabled people are able to be out there and active and doing things, then it does becomes less of an add-on and more of an everyday thing. And I guess that's what we're really looking for in terms of the strategies, vision, and principles.
Simon speaking. Thanks, Ben. So, is there anything left in the sort of formal process of once this document's now been published, need to then go in front of any sort of cabinet, or has that already happened? Forgive me for my ignorance, but is there any more formalities involved, or is it now just it's an official document and it can be used to support activities and as like we've just been talking about?
Ben speaking. I think the work has really just begun. It's often easier to write a strategy than it is to achieve what's in it. Minister Upston chairs a ministerial group which is called the Ministerial Disability Leadership Group, and so they have been overseeing the preparation of the strategy, and they're also going to oversee its implementation. So they looked at the draft strategy. The final strategy did go to cabinet. That happens with all government strategies to make sure that they're signed off at that cross-ministerial level. And next year, Minister Upston is really keen to ensure that the ministerial group can oversee monitoring approach for the action. So we're going to work with agencies on effectively a schedule for when various actions can be completed. And we know that not everything can be started in January. That's not the nature of the way that all the work programs work, but we know that we need to get the actions done in the 5-year period. And so we're going to work with agencies across the 5 outcome areas, the Ministry of Education, Housing and Urban Development, etc., to make sure that we've got a schedule for completing the actions, and we'll be clear about how that is progressed. Whaikaha has to report to Parliament every year on the progress of the disability strategy, and that's actually been in place as a requirement for some time. And so we've been doing reports on the 2016-2026 strategy, but the difference this time around is that we have an action plan with I think a lesser number of actions than the last disability action plan, and hopefully we've got a bit more resource. Certainly we have more resource than the Office of Disability Issues had previously to make sure that we can track the completion of actions, and actually to support agencies to develop them and implement those actions as well. And there are a number of actions where agencies have said they want to share work with us. So there are some in education, there are some in housing, where Whaikaha is going to be actively involved in progressing the action.
Simon speaking. Thanks, Ben. Is there the ability for those timelines to be available public? I'm sure there would be a lot of buy-in from the disability community to help in that action of keeping agencies accountable, but then also being able to spot opportunities where they can participate in things that they find valuable.
Yeah, Ben speaking. Yep, absolutely. That the intention is that we will publish a timeline. I don't want to commit that that's going to be done, by February, because I think it's probably more likely to be after the first quarter once we've been able to phase things. But yes, the intention is to be transparent about when stuff will be done. One of the things that we're modelling this on is a thing called the Human Rights Monitor, which is on the Justice website now, and that has timeframes in it for the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability actions, and so that provides kind of a model for how we can implement these actions too, around putting timeframes on things.
Simon speaking. Thanks, Ben. I think it's a good time just to head back to the comments. Tracy from a few moments ago said, what we are looking for is inclusion in society, in life, to be seen, heard and accepted. And I think that was around the time we were talking about the change in language from participation to contribution. And that comment there, I think, echoes it. And then, Ben, I just think I'd like to give you this opportunity to maybe clarify what you were talking about. But then Tracy, I think, felt a little bit aggrieved by the mention of saying the work had just begun, and that she said that generations of disabled people have been advocating, fighting, and insisting that we are just as human as everyone else. This is not a new discussion or idea. And she says, please do not disrespect all disabled people who have worked so hard for so long. I just want to maybe offer you the opportunity, Ben, to just acknowledge that that's not what you were trying to say when you said the work had just begun.
I mean, the work on this strategy, the work on this strategy is only just begun. So we've written the document, making the document live and making it real. That's the bit I was meaning, not that people haven't been working for generations.
Yes.
I know they have, yes.
Yeah. So speaking, thanks, Ben. Now, there has been a couple of comments, and we did talk about it before the live stream went live, and I didn't get your approval to talk about it, but you feel free to say no. But people are really keen to hear any insight you have around the judgment that was published today around the Supreme Court case and the acknowledgement of the family carers being considered home workers for the government. And I just wondered, is there any insight you have on that you are willing to share, or would you prefer to have some time to think on that before you make anything public?
Been here. I haven't even had time to read the media coverage around this. I heard via someone in the office that the decision had been released, and I have been in meetings pretty much all day. So sorry, can't help there. I'm sure that that the government will need to sit down, like everybody else, and read through the actual judgment and work out where to from here.
Simon speaking. Yeah, thanks, Ben. Yeah, I'm sure, like you said, there's going to be a lot of work for the government to actually understand how this judgment impacts the way things are currently, and then they'll probably release some information once they've got some clarity on if they're, well, what changes will be as a result of those findings. And we here at Manawanui will make sure that we amplify those messages. Perhaps we can talk about it a little bit next week. We have the final live stream of the year next Tuesday. And at this stage, we have Ellen, our Chief Operating Officer, confirmed, and we're hopefully going to have Ben Irving, our CEO, join her. It's just depending on his schedules. He is a tentative at the moment, but it'd be really cool to celebrate the end of the year alongside those two and potentially see what sort of musings we can have around the findings. But yeah, at this stage, it's far too early for any of us to understand what the impact's going to be. But today we've been talking about the disability strategy, and it's been a pleasure to have you on, Ben. It's really lovely to hear it from somebody who's got such a breadth of understanding of what's in the document, what's formed it, and how it can actually make a material impact for disabled people's lives over the next few years. So I, alongside others, will look forward in holding people accountable to timelines and commitments, and obviously playing our part in improving equity and inclusion wherever possible. So
Ben speaking, just thank you again for the opportunity, and we're looking forward to, as you say, continuing to work alongside people and to monitor and progress how we give life to this document. Yeah.
Simon speaking. Awesome, wonderful. Thank you very much again, Ben. Thank you all who watched and engaged. We will see you all again same time next week. Ka kite.